Breaking tonight, Megyn Kelly has sat down exclusively with Donald Trump for what is perhaps his most revealing interview ever. And Megyn, it's great to have you with us. Congratulations. Of course, this was the first time you've interviewed Trump in 7 years. And who could forget this moment in 2015 during his first run for the Republican nomination? Watch.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
And 8 years later, Megyn, the pair of you still had some unfinished business on that.
You asked me a question when you were moderating the debate for Fox that, frankly, if I didn't come up with the answer, only Rosie O'Donnell, I would have had a problem with that. That was a bad question.
That was a great question.
No, it was a nasty question.
It was awesome.
You know, there are questions that are, it's not that they're not answerable, but no matter, if you're Winston Churchill, he was very good at debating.
You handled it well. Your poll numbers went up.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I got a little bit lucky.
Megyn, he's still not over it. He's still not over it.
He's not. He's not over it, Dan. I mean, honestly, it was like the first, I saw him in July at this event. It was the first thing he raised when he saw me. I saw him at the beginning of the interview yesterday, just glad handing before we sat down. It was the first thing he raised. In the middle of the interview, he raised it again. My God, it's been 8 years, 8 years. And like I said, like I've always thought that Trump handled that well. And if you listen to the full answer, you can't deny it. You know, he said, what I say is what I say. And people are sick of all the political correctness. And people love that. The Republicans wanted somebody to say it, but he just can't get over it. He really is focused on that question. Whatever. It was one of so many great subjects that we touched on.
It was. And I want to move on to a couple of those. But first, Megyn, what is it like personally between you now? Is he still combative, or has he changed his style with you?
Well, he and I have an interesting relationship. It's like there's conflict, there's friction, but we kind of like each other. You know, it's like he knows I'm not one of his sycophants. I am definitely not one of his, sycophants. But I also don't have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, I kind of like him. I think he's charming, but he also attacked me for 9 months and required security to come into my life nonstop with armed guns. I mean, so the whole thing is so confusing. I don't hold anything against him. I just, we're in a very tough business. And when you throw hard punches at these politicians, sometimes it comes back at you too. And you got to be tough. You got to take it. It doesn't mean that there's no emotion there, and I think both of us have some behind the veneer about each other, but like we also have this begrudging respect for each other because we're both strong personalities.
Yes, so let's talk about some of the issues, because you really managed to pin Trump down on the issue of trans, which has become obviously a political hot potato for him. So this is the moment where he explained why he said in 2016 that he would allow the world's most famous trans woman, Caitlyn Jenner, to use the girls' restroom at Trump Towers.
I knew Caitlyn as Bruce. I knew Bruce, and, Bruce was a great athlete and a very handsome person, very handsome guy. And all of a sudden, Bruce is Caitlyn.
Can a man become a woman?
In my opinion, you have a man, you have a woman. I think part of it is birth. Can the man give birth? No.
What did you make of his answers, Megyn?
I preferred that it would have been stronger. I thought it was a little too wishy-washy. I was glad he said it. And when I pressed him on, like, substantively, are you for men who claim they're women going into women's spaces, their locker rooms, their bathrooms, their prisons? He said no. He was clear on that. I would rather, I saw this nonsense with the Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, not able to define a woman. I don't need to see it from President Trump. I think he needs to work on that in the next interview. He needs to say what Ron DeSantis says, which is no, it's not possible. It's not a thing. So he'll work on it. It's the first time anybody asked him that. I think he's got a little work to do. I think, in general, he did point to the fact that he didn't allow trans people to serve in the military. That was one area in which he was kind of tougher than most. And he's going to have to shore up the rest of his answers. He also said he's against puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for minors, which is a plus. I mean, I really think you can't run as a Republican and not take that position.
No, indeed. And obviously he has a friendship with Caitlyn Jenner, doesn't he? And he was honest about that. He said, look, I knew Caitlyn as Bruce. It was a whole new thing. And he's sort of honest about the fact that he didn't really know how to handle it. But he did like Bruce, and he also liked Caitlyn.
To him, yeah, I said to him in the whole exchange, like, I've changed a lot since 2016 too. You know, I think we all have. It was, and he made a good point, which is such a minor issue back then. So few people. That was one thing. Now that, you know, these folks are trying to, take over women's sports, and we have to deal with this more and more, and girls are getting hurt. It's a totally different ball game, separate and apart from Caitlyn. She's on our side on these issues.
But look, obviously, the big question, Megyn, was about jail and jail time and why on earth he's doing all of this, given the charges being flung at him from the Democrats. This is really fascinating, this exchange. Watch this.
You don't have to be running for president, sitting for 4 criminal trials, some civil, and possibly looking at jail time.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Yeah. Make America great again. Our country's going to hell. And so when you say, would I like to be at Turnberry in Scotland right now, or would I like to be at one of the many places I have, the greatest places, I may never see those places again. But I think this is very important.
Megyn, I've never heard him talk that way. I may never see those places again. Do you think he was referring there to the realistic possibility that he could end up in jail, or more the fact that actually he could end up president, which means he's unable to travel the world?
I think the latter, but it may have had a double meaning, because we had just discussed the fact that he's got a realistic chance of going to prison. He really does. He is being pursued in 4 separate, they really are persecutions, by left-wing prosecutors who have gotten left-wing judges in all but 1, and will have left-wing juries in probably 3 out of the 4. So he's in trouble. I don't know that Trump has fully grasped that he really might be sent to prison. Not immediately. I don't think it'll happen before the election, because even if the trials happen before the election, he'll appeal. I don't think they'll send him to jail pending appeal. That's not normally how it works. And he has a very good chance of getting some, or potentially even all, of these cases thrown out by the appellate courts. So it's not a done deal, but it's a very real possibility given the makeup of the jurists who he's dealing with. So it's scary. And I think he realizes that by running again, and the truth is, Dan, look, he has to run again. Like, I think he does care about the country deeply, and he wants it to go back to the way it was when he was governing. But he has to run again, because what's he going to do? Like, it's his
because he can pardon himself.
Of this yes, he has to.
He can pardon himself. And it's looking good at the moment, though, Megyn. It's looking good. I mean, the Real Clear Politics average, right, for the first time has Trump actually beating Biden at the general election. So the polls are turning in his favor.
It does. He's up a point. I mean, they're pretty tight, but that's good, because, typically the Republicans don't tend to poll as heartily they don't show up in these polls as much as the Dems do. And that was the case in 2016. In 2020, the pollsters got it a little bit closer to right. So we're not totally sure how much faith to put in the polls. What we need to be looking at, though, Dan, is how is he doing with the independents in the critical swing states? How is the enthusiasm for and against him in the critical swing states? That's what the whole thing is going to come down to.
No, indeed. Indeed. Well, look, it was a gripping interview, Megyn. What was he like at the end? Was he happy? Because, sometimes he lets the interviewer know what he thought.
I don't think I'd use the word happy, but he was gracious. He posed for a picture with me. My hairstylist absolutely loves Trump, and he was super sweet. Posed with her. So we had a nice goodbye. He didn't, storm out or anything like that. So, fingers crossed. None of that stuff starts.
No, we won't have any more Twitter beef. But look, I really, really recommend everyone go to the Megyn Kelly YouTube page. Loads of clips up there now. The full interview is just electric. Well done. Big scoop, Megyn. So great to speak, and we'll have you back next week. Please, Megyn Kelly, thank you so much.